Hi, this is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger here. I'm the author of this story on the Colorado Batman shooting. And, you know, there's a lot of questions about this story, still a lot of unanswered questions. And because we've been just barraged with questions on Facebook and elsewhere, I wanted to go over some of the main questions on the story and just explain to you, why, why there are so many questions. Like, for example, all right, starting out, the guy is supposed to be this med student, which I believe that that's not made up. He's a medical school student, graduated with an honors degree in the undergraduate neuroscience area, went on to graduate medical school studying neuroscience, but then and he played online role-playing games. He had no girlfriend. Apparently, he was shy. He was introverted. Sounds pretty typical actually for a lot of guys. In their teens and early 20s, so nothing weird there. Never had any run-ins with the law, just had a speeding ticket, that was it. Then all of a sudden he bursts into this movie theater and he shoots up the place, but then he walks out and calmly surrenders to the police without resistance. Okay, first of all, that's weird, because if you were trying to kill everybody, you'd probably shoot at the cops too. He didn't. Why is that? Secondly, he then admits to the police that his apartment is booby-trapped with explosives. Now, think about this. If you're trying to kill as many people as possible because you're some kind of evil psychotic killer, why would you tell the police that your apartment is booby-trapped? You would rather not tell them and let them open the door and trip the booby trap and something blows up in their face, right? If you're a bad guy. Now, fortunately, he did tell them, but why? What would explain that? Because look at this. After his arrest, the police went and they said bomb technicians are determining how to disarm flammable or explosive material in the apartment. But it goes on. The police chief, Aurora Police Chief Dan Oates, says that his apartment is, quote, booby-trapped with a sophisticated maze of flammable devices. It could take hours or days for authorities to disarm it. And wait a minute. How do you go from being a med school student with no friends and playing online role-playing games to suddenly being, Jason freaking Bourne here, where suddenly you're like a super military, Rambo type of character who can build flammable device mazes of booby traps and tripwires, and it doesn't make sense. You don't get this just by watching YouTube, folks. You don't just read that out of a book. Now check this out. Pictures from inside the apartment are fairly disturbing, and the devices look to be sophisticated, adding the booby traps were something I've never seen. This is from a story out of CBS. The guy, the shooter, Holmes, had a rifle, 2 handguns, a knife, a bulletproof vest, a ballistic helmet, which is not easy to get, by the way, a gas device, a gas mask, military SWAT clothing, and unidentified explosives were found in his car. Like C4, perhaps? In addition, to the vest, he had leg, groin, and throat protectors during the shooting. Okay, so this is starting to get really freaky, because this is not the kind of stuff that a med student goes out and gets on their own. Even if you could get the gear, and if you were resourceful, you could get the gear. He did buy the rifles legally. Oh, and by the way, he went online and bought 6,000 rounds of ammo too. That's come out of the news now. But even if you could get all this gear, where would you get the training? Not in graduate school. You can't just read this stuff out of a book. Not even the Anarchist Cookbook. If you try to play with this stuff just to learn these skills, a lot of guys end up just blowing themselves up or burning their faces off. This is not something that you just go out and learn from watching YouTube. Somebody taught this guy this stuff. And then he went out and did it as if he was hypnotized with some kind of an alternate personality. That's why I mentioned Jason Bourne earlier. It's almost like a Jason Bourne. It's almost like an MK Ultra. It's almost like the guy was hypnotized or taken over. Maybe some people might say a demonic spirit or an evil spirit, took him over. Maybe he was just hypnotized, sheep dipped, brainwashed. Who knows? These are some of the questions. He's got no background. He's somewhat of an enigma. A peace officer said in the New York Times article. So one of the questions that I'm asking as a journalist, I'm an investigative journalist. That's what I do. I ask questions, and I don't just ask politically correct questions. I ask questions that sometimes tend to, let's say, make people not too happy to face the questions. But the questions I'm asking right here are, how did this guy get this money? How did he get this training? How did he put all this together? And the conclusion is he must have been helped. And then from there I ask, well, who could have helped him? And this is where the FBI comes in. Now, just for the record, most of the guys in the FBI, and I know a couple, are good guys. It's only a rogue element of the FBI, just like any law enforcement agency, that has gone bad. So within the FBI, just like within any police department or any agency, you're going to have typically 80 to 90% good guys and then 10 to 20% rogue criminal elements running around in that department. That's normal. Of course, in places like Chicago, it's more like 90% criminals and 10% good guys. And I've heard that in Miami, it's like 99% crooks. And in New York, it's also pretty bad as well. Everywhere that there's been massive gun disarmament, it's like the crooks run wild. But in the FBI, I believe that the FBI is predominantly a law-abiding organization with agents who mean well and who are, trying to do the right thing. It's just a small rogue element. But look at what that rogue element has done. According to the New York Times, these terror plots in the U.S. are always hatched by the FBI. The FBI would buy fake C4 explosives, suicide vests. They would provide training to the terrorists. They'd provide a van loaded with 55-gallon drums of inert material, blasting caps, det cord, diesel fuel, and then they would even drive the van. See, an undercover FBI agent did the driving. This is right out of the New York Times. So just so you know, I'm not making this up. You can go to my website right now, naturalnews.com, search for this story on Batman shooter, and you can get this link yourself and you can click on it. And then I've covered this. I've written up 4 stories in the past about the FBI funding and planning and carrying out terrorist plots and then stopping them at the last minute. So we know the FBI has been, or at least I should say a rogue element of the FBI, has been engaged in setting up terror plots and actually planning them, plotting them, providing equipment, driving the freaking van. And then stopping them at the last minute and saying, oh, we stopped terrorism, aren't we so great, and we need more funding, basically is what that comes down to. What if the FBI trained Holmes, but then he got away from them? I don't think the FBI would knowingly want to have a massacre happen. But what if they trained Holmes, and then he got away from them and just went out and did it on his own, using the training they gave him, using the flammable booby trap devices that they taught him? Is the FBI the source of his information, of his training? I don't know the answer, but it is a legitimate question to ask as a journalist, because again, we have this background of the FBI. Or was Holmes, did he learn his training from an actual terrorist? Where did he get the training? That's a big question. He's got no background. He's unemployed. He was actually collecting unemployment. And then how does he get up to $20,000 in all this gear? Now, some people have argued with me and said it's not $20,000 in gear, it's more like $10,000. Well, I don't know if you've ever shopped for rifles and weapons sights and spare magazines and all these other things, but believe me, to do what that guy did with all that gear, that's $20,000, I think. It's not, just as I point out here in the article, just an ACOG, a holographic red dot rifle sight, can run up to $2,000. Just by itself, and the rifle can easily run $1,000 to $2,000 just by itself. Plus, he bought 6,000 rounds of ammo. That's another couple of $1,000s. This stuff starts adding up. Now then, this leads to the question of why was this done? All right, I would say there's two possible theories here. One theory is the guy was a lone gunman. But again, that doesn't add up. Where did he get the training? Where did he get the know-how? Why? How did he act with a total different personality versus what he was, that everybody else said he was shy and kind and introverted and so on? But that's one theory, the lone gunman theory, which makes about as much sense as the lone gunman assassinating JFK. Doesn't add up. The other theory that makes a lot more sense is somebody put him up to this, somebody sheep-dipped him, somebody plan this for a purpose. Then you have to ask, what is the purpose? Now, This is where the UN Small Arms Treaty comes in. A vote is coming up in just a week or two on the UN Small Arms Treaty. And now you'll notice throughout history, any time before the politicians wanted to attack gun owners or take away the Second Amendment rights that are guaranteed under the Bill of Rights, they magically something big would happen like Oklahoma City. Oh, I say magically in quotes, because isn't it interesting how the timing always works out? So you have the Small Arms Treaty vote coming up. All of a sudden, there's a mad shooter in a movie theater. Now, by the way, I think it's only the beginning. I think there's going to be more. My prediction on the record here is that we're going to see more shootings or even a bombing in the coming weeks. That's my prediction, because I think this is only small time. This dude is only small time compared to what they have in mind. They want to take away the Second Amendment right of all Americans. Now, some of you listening may be, against guns, or some of you may be in favor of guns. My view is, I don't like guns, but I love to have the right to own them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a gun worshiper, but I'm a concealed carry permit holder. And I've trained with firearms. I train with a lot of things that I don't worship. I train how to drive a car. I don't worship my car. It's just a tool that gets me from point A to point B. A firearm is the same thing. It's a tool that protects me, my family, my community. I work with local law enforcement. I have a long history of that, actually. Served as a volunteer, a board member of a nonprofit that raised money for local cops in Arizona. Was honored by the chief of police there for my efforts in that realm. Helped to raise many, many thousands of dollars for those officers there. And I've trained alongside officers. I've taught officers how to defend themselves against knife attacks and things like that. So I've worked with a lot of law enforcement, and I'm a big supporter of law enforcement, and I'm a big supporter of local community safety and protection. That is not just an American right, but I believe a sacred right, a divine right. You see it all throughout nature. A cactus has spines on it. It says, stay away, don't damage me, mind your own business, let me mind my business. That's in nature. And so the Second Amendment is a divine right. The right to self-defense and self-protection is a divine right. But the UN doesn't like that. Because, as I point out in this story, the UN wants a, quote, monopoly of force in government. They want all the governments of the world to have all the power and the people to have no power. And I even point this out in this story. You can go to the story at naturalnews.com. Just search for James Holmes shooter or Batman shooting. The UN wants a global monopoly of force because they say they want to have the creation of the democratically legitimized monopoly of violence that is globally required. That's a quote right out of a Geneva document. And I put the link in the article. You can read it yourself. The global security governance and the monopoly of force is the subhead for that section. And it says the legitimate monopoly of force should not be limited to the nation state, but should be based on the local, national, regional, and global levels. And of course, the UN wants all that power in their hands. But to get that power, the UN has to first disarm America and destroy the Second Amendment in America. So that's where the UN Small Arms Treaty comes in. If Obama signs this and then invokes it through executive order, he can bypass Congress, as he loves to do, which is completely illegal, completely unconstitutional, but he does it anyway. He can bypass Congress and then just declare that every American should register their guns with the United Nations. They can declare that all semi-automatic firearms are then instantly illegal, unless they're in the hands of government. Now, this would, of course, monopolize force in the hands of government, take it out of the hands of the people. Why is that bad? Because governments routinely murder millions. And this is a short list of some of the history of governments actually murdering millions and millions of people. Mao Zedong, 50 million dead. Adolf Hitler, 12+ million dead. It's actually more like way more than 20 million, by the way. Joseph Stalin, 6 million dead. Ismail Enver in Turkey, 2 million dead. Pol Pot, 1.7 million dead. These are the examples of government gone bad. And when government goes bad, as it always does, when it monopolizes power, government always becomes tyrannical, and it always then commits genocide against the people. Mass murder. This is the history of the world right here. It's very violent. Now, what stops this is guns in the hands of the citizens. And so instead of having a monopoly of force, you have a distribution of force. That's what you want in a free society. A free society must have a distribution of power. Hence the separation of power even in the federal government, the judicial, legislative, and executive branches. 3 different branches of government is the separation of powers. You're also supposed to have separation of violent power, or I should say the separation of the powers of committing violence. That is to have, the government should not have a monopoly of violence, a monopoly of force. That should be distributed among the citizens so that the citizens can, in fact, defend themselves against a government that goes crazy and gets tyrannical. I believe was it Jefferson who said it? A government that fears the people, or when the government fears the people, you have liberty. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny, or something similar to that. And that's actually true. So everywhere around the world where the population is disarmed, you have absolutely corrupt, tyrannical governments. And the UN is the worst example of that, or I guess you could say the best. The UN, total diplomatic immunity, running child kidnapping rings, running drugs all over the world, trying to disarm everybody, and wanting to have total control over all nuclear weapons, all weapons of mass destruction. That's even pointed out in this document. Where did it go? Right here. To reestablish state monopoly ownership of weapons of mass destruction. That's right in this document that I talk about. This is called Governance Solutions for Reasserting the State Monopoly on the Use of Force. To reestablish monopolies of force against the people. And this is all about prohibiting business activity. That's what Obama has done, shipping jobs outside the country, shutting down innovation, shutting down jobs in America. And then it talks about control of financial transfers, export controls, transport and infrastructure safety. That's the TSA. See, they're already doing it. They're already well along this plan. Environmental impact as a way to limit people. The EPA coming in telling people they can't build houses and things like that. It's already underway, folks. We are late in the game. Very, very late in the game. So if you think that this is just some lone gunman with a random shooting, you're not informed. This is something way more complicated, way deeper. Oh, there's how you defend yourself against a gun to your head, by the way. Krav Maga, you should go learn some of that. This is a deep, deep issue. And it is not what it appears to be on the surface. I can tell you that. As an investigative journalist who's been looking at these issues for years, over 10 years, I've been writing thousands of articles I've written. I've become known as one of the best investigators on alternative news in the alternative news industry. I mean, look at this story. 75,000 Facebook shares in far less than 24 hours. A lot of people read this. I'm not trying to say I'm great or anything. I'm just trying to ask questions. That's it. Frankly, I'd rather not even deal with this stuff. I'd rather focus on conscious cosmology and connection to the divine and things like that. Like my website here, Divinity Now is right here. Here's a logo, divinitynow.com. That's what I'd rather be doing, because that, to me, that is fulfilling. That is like, time in nature and things like that. That's what I'm more interested in. But when this crap happens, we have to ask questions and try to understand what's going on. So that's why I wrote this story, and that's why I'm shooting this video. I am tired of the people being lied to. I'm tired of the mainstream media spinning the truth and telling us we should all be disarmed, we should have no power, the government should have all the power, the UN should take over our country. That is the surest path to total enslavement. And if you want to be a slave, go for that. Go for it. Re-elect Obama. Hand in your guns. Give the government a total monopoly of power over everybody. Worship the UN. Bow down. Lick boots. Put pictures of Kim Jong-il on your wall and have a fake crying episode to him and the fact that he died recently. If you're a government worshiper, you should love Kim Jong-il and his son, whatever his name is, the latest, godlike human in Korea that the people are now worshiping. I don't worship tyrants, and I don't sit there and just lay down and get shot. You know what I'm saying? Like many of you, I believe in fighting for justice, fighting for liberty, fighting for protection and safety, protecting innocent people, upholding the law, restoring the republic. Joining the activism for basic freedom and basic justice. I mean, those are the things that I believe in. And frankly, I do not care if someone doesn't share that belief, whatever. I'm going to be here. I'm a survivor. I'm going to be here fighting for freedom and justice no matter what. And I'm going to do it with words as much as possible. I like to fight with words, not bullets. This guy likes to fight with bullets, but he's a mind-controlled something that we don't yet know what influences he had. So, you know, this is reality, man. This is what's happening. We got to ask these questions. We got to dig deeper. We got to find out what's going on. So anyway, and this is going long, so I'll just say thanks for listening, and more stories are coming, and I'm going to keep asking questions. You know, I really don't care. Even if the FBI wants to visit me and ask me questions about why I named them in the story, fine. I know FBI guys. Most of them are good guys. I've already said that. It's these rogue elements within the FBI. I mean, I don't care. I just do not care what other people think. I'm going to pursue these questions no matter what, and until we get some answers about what happened here. Now, I don't have any special inside connections. I don't have any special, you know, whistleblower handing me documents on this. You know, nobody's called me with special tips or anything. This is just analyzing the news that's out there. I'm kind of glad I don't have any insider information. Then, you know, I might be in more danger if that were the case. I'm just reading the news and asking common sense questions, and that's it. And that's what we should be doing in America. That is what journalism is supposed to be, asking questions and demanding answers. And so far, we don't have many answers on why this went down and who this guy is and how he got his training and what is the bigger agenda behind all this and why the timing of it was right now when there's this effort to ban all firearms across America. And don't forget Fast and Furious. You know, the ATF was carrying out Fast and Furious, which was set up by the Obama administration to run guns into Mexico and then blame the Second Amendment by causing gun violence in border states, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, namely. And that they got caught. So they were trying to demonize the Second Amendment, and they got caught. So we already know the administration is interested in staging these events in order to gain support for banning firearms in America, firearms in the hands of law-abiding citizens. So we already have a pattern. We already have evidence that that's going on. Anyway, a lot more on this straight ahead. You can check out naturalnews.com to stay informed. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, and thanks for watching. Take care.